We've talked about debt elimination. So imagine an individual has now paid off their debt and now they're looking to build their monetary wealth. So my questions will be a bit different from Chulu. I'm going to make them maybe a bit situational because I think sometimes people understand more with the situation. So imagine so in the Louis talked about this, I think, and Maureen, where we're in an economic time where you either find yourself with a small disposable income, so maybe because you've been made redundant because of COVID-19, right? So you happen to have paid off your loans that you had taken before because you've been made redundant and you've been paid off by your company. So now you've got a bit of money, and you're thinking, I don't ever want to be in debt again. However, I want to build on this money. So I have one question that will be kind of like two questions. So the first question is, what key elements would this individual who happens to have a bit of money, not in debt anymore, what key elements would this individual look into when they're considering how they're going to build their finances? And if, especially, a lot of us are from an African background, right? Whether you're in the diaspora, whether you're in Africa, we're affected in the same way. It doesn't matter. We have the same thoughts, the same cultural, traditional ideas are put in our heads. So, what myths around financial health would you guys, as financial advisors, want to debunk out of the African community? I think, Celestine, all of you actually touched on them already, but I would want to understand what key elements, as an individual who's got a bit of money and I've paid my debt off, what key elements should I look to consider when building my finances? And what myths would you think I should, as financial advisors, look out for?
So
Okay.
So what, I guess, let me try and understand. The person has no debt, correct?
Yes. So the first part of the topic was with debt elimination.
Yeah.
The steps a person should take. So there's also individuals now who've got to a stage where they don't have the debt, or they've just cleared the debt, or they're in a good stage where they've got a bit of money. What do they do? What elements do they look out for when considering, how do I build this little money that I have? And what myths do I need to remove out of my head in order to do this?
Right. So for me, aside from budgeting, I love saving. If you have a little bit of money, do you have an emergency account or an emergency fund? An emergency fund is essentially a fund that you use for emergencies. Kind of explains itself. And how you determine that amount, a lot of people have different formulas of, what amount your emergency fund should be. But basically what it is if your expenses every month as an individual or with a family of 5, 4, whatever, as a family, as an individual, every month, your expenses come out to $2,000, right? That's what it comes up to. Then you save maybe 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses. So $2,000 times 3 months. If you can get to 6 months, that's even better, right? And that amount is going to cover you should you lose your job. Pandemic happened, or my basement flooded, my roof flew off because it felt like it. My mom, hit her knee, and then she needs surgery. So many things. Right, my car broke down. That is an emergency. You can dip into that emergency account or fund and use it to cover it, so you don't have to wait for the next paycheck. So for me, I'm always telling people, if you have extra money and you don't have debt, save as much as you can. Liquid cash, physical cash, where you can go into the bank and say, I'm cashing out, right? And you can say, within 3 days, I'm going to get that amount of money. So save as much as you can. When you're done, if you're with a company that offers you a retirement fund or account, 401k, Roth IRA, all these other things, fund that, right? Because right now you have extra money. You don't owe anyone or any institution. So build that emergency account, fund your retirement account. Those are not the same, right? Your emergency account should not be your retirement account. That's just mixing oil and I don't know what. So just keep those two separate. So fund your retirement account. At the same time, you are really beefing up your savings account. When you're done and you have extra money and you want to invest, boom, invest. Now let's break down investment. Sometimes just scares people. Stocks, bonds, don't get scared. Let's bring it down to the African context. Investment can mean buying property in your village, the village that you're avoiding, you know, that one place that you don't want to go to. There's land over there. Go look into that. Or look into your family land, your mom, your father, whoever's land, and say, hey, this is going to be passed down to me. Can we protect it? Is it registered? Invest in that. Is it registered? Can you put it in my name? Can we buy more land? Is the paperwork up to date? Buy land in places that you can afford. If it could be in the city, it could be in your village. I personally will go with, you know, my hometown because the land there is cheap and land does not depreciate. It will always increase in value. If I buy for $2,000, maybe 10 acres, for example, for $2,000, guess what? If you come to me, if Lewis comes to me tomorrow after I've signed the papers and says, hey, Celestina, can I get 1 acre? I say, well, I'm selling for $10,000. Take it or leave it. And if he has no choice, guess what? I bought it for 2,000 or less, and I'm profiting more than that. So invest in your own country. That also comes back to the Africans who are here trying to look back home. Buy land and invest in it, or buy real estate and invest in it, or buy stocks and invest in it. But before you get to investing, right, make sure you have a really, really beefed up savings account, and you're contributing towards your retirement account. At the same time, the disposable income that you get, you can definitely start investing into it by buying land, buying any kind of property, and just capitalizing off of that, or buying stocks. Buying stocks, if you like Apple products, buy Apple stocks. If you like Nike, buy Nike. You know, start small. Don't get so confused about it, but little by little. But the land, that's a jackpot.
If I can chime in as well with this, I think the best way to start for someone who's in a position where they don't have any debt, and now they're thinking about building a robust financial plan for themselves, the best way to always start is with the end. You know, what is it that you want your future to look like? What is it that you're trying to achieve? What is your goal? What is your aim? If you turn around and say, actually, let's give an example of the person. The person's 30 years old, they have a really good job, don't have any debt. Maybe perhaps their goal was to start a family and they're aiming to retire at, let's say, you know, they want to stop working and just kind of live in their retirement from age 50, 55, 60, or whatever it is. And then obviously start looking at your future. What is it that you want your retirement to look like? Start with that. Start building a picture of what you want your life to look like. Be intentional. Once you've established that, then you can start with building that financial plan to help you achieve those goals, right? And there's so many ways that you can build an effective and robust financial plan. First of all, you know, understand exactly what your trajectory is with your earnings, your income. What's your pathway with regards to your career? Is that mapped out? Do you have a rough idea of what you want to make? How long it's going to take you to make that? And then also understand your actual assets. What do you have right now in terms of your assets, right? Do you have assets? Do you have an emergency fund? Do you have any, investments in the market? Do you have any bonds? Do you have any retirement pots? What do you have? And also understand that ultimately, even if you have a really good and robust financial plan, life still happens. So what you want to do is you want to secure that, right? And one of the best ways to secure it and to ensure that actually this plan can still remain on track is make sure that you have a good, protection plan in place, right? Ensure actually that my ultimate goal is to achieve this. So let me ensure this, all right? And that can come in the form of different ways. You can have income protection, for instance. I don't know how it works necessarily in Africa, but one of the things that's really beneficial here, especially because of the pandemic, people have understood that it's really, really important to protect your income, because what happens if you're made redundant tomorrow? Life still happens, the bills still come, the debts still come, and you need to still maintain, keep on track to achieve those goals. And also, understanding that, things can happen with your illness. You can fall sick. People never, I guarantee you 6 months ago, no one had an idea of what COVID-19 was. Yeah. No one had an idea of what it was. The flu could take so many lives, but it did. Right. And it made people really, really sick. And I'm sure because it's life, more, pandemics or illnesses are going to arise. Right. So it's understanding that your health is also something that's really, really important. So how do you protect that? Because ultimately you're the biggest asset. Without you feeling well, being well, you can't make money. And obviously that has to be key for you. And obviously then protecting your life. If you have a family, understanding that if you go away, if you're the main breadwinner, how then does your family sustain itself? So having that understanding and then contributing towards that plan to help you achieve that. The 3 pillars that I use when it comes to having a robust financial plan in place for that specific person who doesn't have any debts and wants to be financially free, let's say that, wants to be in a position where they don't need to work anymore. They can get up and make the decision, whether or not they want to work, relax, enjoy themselves, retire, whatever it is. The 3 pillars of that plan is making sure that you're contributing to the plan, whether it be in a form of savings, right? But even with savings, it has to be intentional. It has to be for a specific purpose, because if you just carry on saving, inflation can just eat away at your savings. So bear that in mind, right? With investments, maximizing the returns on your investments. If you are going to invest in land, understand what the returns are. If you are going to invest in the market, understand what your attitude to risk is, how much risk you're prepared to take, but also understand what the returns are, but also as well, understand your investment horizon, right? Because, understand how long it's going to take for you to receive the returns that you need. If you invest for short term, if you want to invest for short term, it has to be the right investment vehicle. You can't invest in property and expect to get a return in 2 years' time, 3 years' time. It's just not going to happen, right? It has to be a much longer horizon. And then ultimately, I'm assuming it also applies the same in Africa. It does here, being tax efficient, because understanding one of the ways that our money goes is, unfortunately, has to go to the government, tax, right? So how can I be tax efficient? How can I limit my tax liabilities? How can I get my money in order, my income in order, so that I'm paying as little tax as I can, right? And then maximizing those other bits and pieces so that I can invest the rest of the money into my own goals, right? So those 3 things: understanding the contribution levels that you need, the investment returns that's needed, and obviously maximizing and limiting, your tax liability as well. That will help build that robust financial plan. And like she was saying, investments and investing can be very technical and really difficult for people to understand. There's so many different funds out there. There's so many different, investment portfolios out there for us to look into. But it's understanding yourself. You need to start with you. If your goal is to get, to 50 years old, retire, buy a property, and just, live your way out in the land, then understand that plan has to meet your needs and not just randomly doing things because it sounds good.
Wow, amazing. Maureen,
Thank
what do you think of this?
I can't put my video because my connection is really poor. If I put on my video, it's going to be even slower.
That's okay, Chilumba, you can go ahead.
Is that okay? Very practical feedback for myself. I have been working professionally for the past 17 and a half years. So I will tell you, I have never had a savings account. Currently, I run 4 businesses, one which is about to open very soon, and I do so many other things that I wouldn't want to go into. The best way to save, I always say, is to invest. The best way to save is to invest. How you mix the portfolio is entirely another game that you look at. So let me go into 3 things that I want you to look at as you consider key elements that you can look to in building your financial health. Number 1, who are you? What's the current situation? Do you have a job? Do you run a business? Are you employed or are you retired? A fair understanding of who you are. And I'll tell you, the government is there to tax you. They're there to tax you till you die. They will tax even the box you'll be buried in. So understand, if you take your money to the bank, they're going to tax it. That's their job. Number 2, the bank is there to give you the money you don't need so that they can make a profit. So understand and become aware of your current environment. Number 2, who do you want to be? What are your real goals? Just sit down, have a meeting with yourself, and ask yourself, hey, so what are your real goals? What are your real financial goals? What are your real entrepreneurial goals? What are your real personal financial goals? Ask yourself and find out what those goals are. Trust me, behavioral nature and psychological nature of human beings is that the more you become aware of what goals you are chasing, the more effort and the more attention you pay to the things that matter. And the biggest reason for this is because now you know what is important over what is trash. Now you begin to understand why you shouldn't take 7 coffees in a week, costing you roughly $3 in Zambia. Multiply that and you find out what it costs. And I'll tell you that. Now you know why you should cycle 3 times a week instead of driving. And I want to be practical. When I have done some of these things I'm telling you about, they've asked me, you're bringing American and European mentalities to this country. They don't matter. And then I show them my balance sheet, which keeps on growing each and every year because of some of these prudent questions that we're asking. Number 3 is, what must you do to become who you want you to be? This is the strategy part. What might I do to become who I want to be? Let me tell you, a savings account never grew anybody. Never. In the millions of years, those whose savings account grew, they did 5 other things to earn more money. And you can go anywhere in the world, pull out research, practice, bring it. And I will put it in your face and say, tell me how many things do they do? So create strategies that answer to who do I want to become and what should I do? And let me close by saying, none of the millionaires you know, whether in your neighborhood, in your office, around where you live or where you drink coffee from or whatever you drink, none of them have a single income. The idea behind not arriving at one income so that I can create wealth. Now, this is very practical. We can spend 3 days talking about this, but look, on it, and put strategies around it. And the last point on that is that never be scared to try and start a new arena of whether an investment, a business, or an agenda to better yourself. Because look, when they flew the first plane, they were not qualified. So nobody's qualified and nobody knows. Taking a difference and changing the future begins by you understanding, what do I want to become and what should I do now? True, I hope you guys bring this back. You need to bring another session.
We will. We will bring it. We will bring it back. I'm just listening to this conversation as well, and I'm very there's already other different breakaway topics that are happening in my head, and I think we'll tell you all about it at the end of this. But yes, Maureen, your thoughts. Thank you, Chilombo.
Thank you for those contributions. The way I look at building wealth, it's in 2 categories. So there's wealth creation, and then there's wealth management. So wealth creation, you are beginning to build, to create your wealth. Then you get to a point where now you need to have somebody manage your wealth. And the key thing in both wealth creation and wealth management is diversification, okay? So the way you look at diversification, every individual needs to have 3 boxes that they need to tick. The first box is you need to have liquid assets. Very important. Liquid assets, this is cash in the bank. And I think there's a misconception or misunderstanding in terms of money in the bank. Liquid cash is not a savings. It's not savings. The savings we are talking about is savings, an education savings plan because you have children, a retirement plan because you have a lifestyle that you want to maintain after you retire, or you're saving towards life insurance because one day you're going to die and you need to look after your family beyond your grave. That is savings. A savings plan is something that grows interest, okay? Liquid cash in the bank is for transactional purposes because my car can break down tomorrow. I need to have liquid in the bank. It should be for transaction purposes. And in my line of business, you find that, I'll give an example of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe we have offices across the globe. We've got 74 offices worldwide. In Africa, we have a lot of offices. Zimbabwe is our top performing office in the region because Zimbabweans don't keep money in the bank. They want to invest their money. they want to send their money offshore because they understand what can happen to a currency overnight. It just disappeared. Nobody knew that their currency would disappear. A Zambian, I'm a Zambian, no offense, most Zambians would rather keep 1 million kwacha in the bank just so that you can see the balance and say that you've got money in the bank. So money in the bank should be for transactional purposes and the rest goes to investment. So that's the first box, which is liquid assets. The second box is fixed assets. So fixed assets, this is where you have your property, you have, your houses, your land. Again, I'm not saying keep on building. You need to know when to stop, because also the property market at some point it gets saturated. Back here in Zambia, the market is saturated because everybody's building. So again, you need to know, okay, I'm building so that I shouldn't pay rent. I build additional, flats so that I can get rentals back, and then stop and diversify further, because the property bubble, one day it will burst. The last box is investable assets. And investable assets, this is where you have alternative investments. This is where you can get into bonds, you can get into, structured products that will give you higher returns, treasury bills. This is where all these, life pension comes in. And I don't know who mentioned the bonds, that don't let them scare you, because when people hear you need to invest on the market, they get scared. They think that is just for the rich. It's not just for the wealthy. Everybody can invest on the market, buy a bit of shares. Back here in Zambia, somebody also mentioned invest in your country as well. There's listings every other day where you find ShopRite is selling shares, Bata is selling shares. Get into those investments, because that is creating generational wealth. Your children in the future are going to find that you actually bought stock, whether international, whether local. So for me, the key really is diversification. So there's 2 stages: wealth creation, create your wealth. Then you get to a point where now you're managing your wealth. Have a financial advisor. Some people feel they don't need a financial advisor. Everybody needs a financial advisor. All the wealthy people that I know, that I have read about, they have financial advisors, somebody who's qualified. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be an economist, but you're not a financial advisor. There's a reason we are charged heavily on those licenses every year to pay. There's a reason we go to school. There's a reason we get those certifications, because we are qualified to give you financial advice so that we can, you can make better decisions. So no matter what level you're on, there's a financial advisor for everybody. Yeah.
That is a really amazing point, Maureen, that you make. And I think that I work in finance as well, and I think that's one of the scariest things I've seen, both whether you're an African or a British person or whatever, the layperson or just normal people normally are afraid to go to a financial advisor. There's obviously many reasons why. Some people believe that, again, because of tradition, some people are a bit more rigid. They don't want to talk to other people about the debts they have or the money they have, because that's how they were raised or how they were taught. But I think this is a really important point that you brought, Maureen, that financial advisors are for everybody. And the funny thing is, do you know that almost every bank has a financial advisor? So you could start from there. You don't even need to go and seek out a financial advisor like beyond your bank. Your bank has an obligation as an organization that's I don't know, every country has got a body that looks at the finances of a country. Those banks are there to be able to have financial advisors in each bank that can advise you on the finances that you have. And as Maureen said, they're qualified. They have to go through rigorous training for them to be able to give you this financial advice. So why not use it for free? So you could start from there if you want to train your mind. Start from there, go to your bank and ask, is there a financial advisor in this bank? I want to sit down and look at the finances that I have. And then if you feel that they don't understand the complexities, at the end of this talk, all these guys, we're going to give you all their details. They may all be in different countries, but as you're hearing, finances do not have, they're not prejudiced. Doesn't matter what skin color you are or country you're from. Everybody wants to make money, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, go on, Maureen.
Sorry, Moma, very quickly. I know that we're running out of time. It's also about interest. I mean, look at this platform that you've created. I think all of us were sent the link all of us advertised, but look at the number of people that are here. It's lack of interest. I think that's also one thing. I know that I could take us back to mindset. It's also about telling yourself, what are you going to be interested in? Trust me, if this session was about giving marriage tips, how to keep your boyfriend, or
so
I don't know, one of those things, it would have been full. You would have even closed at some point. And it happens on Facebook as well. I run a Facebook page, a Facebook group where we're giving financial advice. I post a lot of stuff. Sometimes you find there's 5 comments, there's 10 comments. The minute I post a comment about my husband used my money, what must I do? And you get 200 comments. So I think it's also about interest in things that can make us better. You don't have to pay a financial advisor. I don't charge a fee to give financial advice until when somebody takes up a product. You understand? So it's interest, it's lack of interest, it's mindset. We need to go back to basics, and people actually need to be interested in making better financial decisions.
Muma, sorry, I'm going to jump in here because Maureen has said something.
Yeah.
Muma, we also have a poor relationship with what we want. Don't you need money, Muma? Doesn't Maureen need money? You know? Doesn't any? How can you have a poor relationship with what you want? It's really painful, you know? How possible is that? You know? Oh gosh. Anyway, I've read the next question, and I'm excited to really just dig deeper.
So because we don't have time, I am gonna mix the last 2 questions into one, like I did in the first 2, right? To make it simpler. And Chilumba, you can then answer that straight away because you're excited about this. So the next question is talking about community banking systems. And it's ironic because I saw on Facebook today a post where somebody had sent to a popular Zambian celebrity person on Facebook, oh my goodness, I was involved in this Chilimba thing and a pyramid scheme kind of thing. So to those who are not Zambian, Chilimba is groups of communities. So it could be 10 people decide to put money together. And after like 2 months, let's say we're all putting £200 in. After 2 months, one person gets the full amount. Then after another 2 months, the next person gets the full amount. So it's called Chilimba. Chilimba literally means like radio or like a circle, a group circle kind of thing. And I think this is very common in many African communities. So what this person asked was, this, the person who runs this Chilimba group has stopped answering the questions, what do I do? So the question that we have here is, do community banking systems like village banking or Chilimba, do they work? And how can a person maximize these programs? And then the next question was, at which point should an individual look at investment options, and how does one qualify what makes a good investment? In my opinion, question 4 was kind of answered in the last question that we just spoke about. So I'd suggest that you talk about the community banking systems. I don't know, Celestine and other people, Luis, if in your country you have this village banking systems and what your views are on this. But yeah, I don't know who's taking this question. Who's taking this question?
Yeah, I can start.
Yeah, Chilumba, you can go ahead. So do community banking systems work, and how can you maximize them if you're in them and they actually work?
Fantastic. So Celestine and Louise will know this because they're in finance. Let me give you a bit of context from where community banking or village banking comes from. It actually was, it's something I wrote a paper about in undergrad, actually. It comes from Bangladesh, founded by a gentleman called Muhammad Yunus. He's actually even won a Nobel Prize. He's a laureate because of propagating micro-lending and village banking systems. So it's not a new concept. It's old. It's, I think, in its 70s in terms of age. And you will be shocked, for any woman sitting on this call, it's been successful in Asia, basically because women are committed. Men, I have nothing against you, because women are committed to managing debt. And so, does it work? If we go into Kenya today, Kenya owns a version of what we call ShopRite, out of village banking schemes. Local people own those facilities out of micro lending and village banking schemes. They own transport sector businesses, they own banks, they own retail, they own hospitals out of the same scheme. Just go down South Africa. The name is called Stockville in South Africa. They pool money together. And by pulling money together, they invest into each other's businesses and or invest into each other's activities and lifestyles. So does it work? Yes, it does. Is there evidence? Yes, there is. My simple question is, how can you have a bad relationship with the thing you love the most? The problem we have is having a bad relationship with money. We are inconsistent. We don't want to follow through. We don't want to be accountable, but yet we want to benefit. It's like most of our corrupt businesses. Corrupt businesses and corrupt governments. We want to talk about wealth and wealth and wealth and growth, and yet be corrupt 24/7. It's a bad relationship with the thing we love the most. So they work, and I can attest to the fact that they work. In the African context, to be precise, Zambian context, it's a lack of discipline and lack of appreciating the effort that goes into growing wealth in a community-based environment. And I will tell you, this is another topic that's close to my heart because I've worked with micro groups while being a professional for more than 10 years. And I've seen people grow from growing vegetables to owning houses and sponsoring children through university, through village banking and micro lending schemes. I have been doing this work pro bono for 11 years, and I've seen it. There might be more qualified people on the line, but in practice, I have seen it. The second point is, what myths around financial health do we want to deal with? Have a good relationship with money. The way you sit down with your girlfriend, your spouse, your boss, and talk about an increase, set that meeting with yourself. A good relationship with money is the beginning point. Now, we the Christians in Africa will say the love of money is the root of all evil. And I will ask, how are you surviving today? Number two, how are you dealing with the fact that you don't want to talk about money and deal with a good relationship with your money, but you still need to survive? So money is something that we all love and we need to get sustained, but we need to discipline ourselves to follow through. And banking systems work. When should somebody start an investment plan? As soon as they earn their first dollar, they should already begin to think about investment plan. Quick example, when people 10, 15 years ago were talking about buying their first car, some of us were talking about buying our first piece of land. Today, they are talking about buying the first piece of farm. The people who put their money where their mouth was on 2, 3 properties. The first time you earn your first dollar, whether it is your mom giving you a hand down, or it is your father giving you a stipend, or indeed your boyfriend sponsoring your coffee, the first minute you earn a dollar, whether sweated for or earned in charity, start a plan to invest. Muma, we'll never finish.
Interesting. We'll never finish, but thank you so much for those points that you've made. I've written down some breakaway topics for the future. I think that was a really good point. Ladies and gentlemen, we've only got 5 more minutes on this particular answer. So if you guys could just answer really quickly. So I think the next person was Celestine. She was ready to go. Yes.
Yes. So I think in Zambia you call it chilimba. I think in Ghana we call it susu, S-U-S-U. And essentially is, let's say 4 people come together and, everybody brings $50. Then we say every 2 weeks, someone is going to get all the money. So $50 dollars each from 4 people is $200. So, okay, this week or this first time is going to Maureen, right? And then we all contribute another $50. We all the group earns $200. The next person it goes to is Lewis. Then it just rotates, right? And we do it for as long as you want, and you can increase the money. Some people do $1,000 contributions. Those who have more money, they're storing $5,000 each, And what that does is it helps you also pay some bills. The money is cycling back into your accounts, and it helps with a lot of things, right? Even with debt repayment and starting a business or X, Y, and Z. But you have to do it with trusted people. If you do it with the wrong people, it just won't work out. So people who can really contribute however much money you've all decided to bring to the table, and that really helps. You can do it with your siblings, actually. You don't have to look far, or your best friends. And that's just a way to earn more money and save more money with trusted people. And I think it works. I love it. If you have, again, trusted people, give it a shot for maybe a couple of months and see how it works. Start small and get a little bit something for your pocket. So yeah.
I think that's key. What Celestina has said about trust is very key. So there's a difference between Chilimba and village banking. Chilimba really, like she put it, is, it rotates and that money helps you. I belong to a Chilimba with a group of friends who've been doing it for years, and like she said, every month not every month, but every so often you decide, what, let's increase the money. And when it's your turn, it comes in really handy. Chilimba, really, you can use it for consumption and to pay bills, to buy food, to take yourself on a nice dinner, to buy good wine. That is what it's meant for. Village banking, on the other hand, is not for consumption. And that's where people go wrong. You can't be in a village banking group and borrow money to pay bills. You should have a plan for that money. Mainly, like Chilumba said, the intention behind that was for small business owners, to have access to readily available money than going through the rigorous process of the bank or filling out applications. So readily available money, I need to fund my business, so I need 10,000 kwacha, and it's readily available because I'm going to pay back with interest. So that is not for consumption. And what has gone wrong in the past, and especially in Zambia, is because people also belong to 5 different groups. You cannot be in 5 different village banking groups. So what is happening is I borrow money from group 1 because my payment for the other group is due. So it goes back, it's like, you're in debt all over again. You should have a plan for your money. There's no issues with belonging to a village banking as long as you have money. You run a business, you run a side hustle. You want to fund that money, that business, so that by the time you're paying interest, you've made money on top of that. So there's absolutely nothing wrong. And the other thing is, a lot of people create groups with people they don't know. So just because somebody told me there's a village banking group, I don't even know anybody in that group. And then I get into that village banking group, and then somebody disappears. I think I saw the post you're talking about where they create a WhatsApp group, somebody paid 6,000 kwacha, and then after everybody pays, then they close the WhatsApp group for commenting. Only admins can comment. Then after some time, they disappear. You can't find them because you don't know them. You cannot get into a village banking with people you don't know. It's about trust, and it should not be for consumption. Chilimba, on the other hand, no problem. Among his friend, group of 5. In fact, this month, it's my turn to get Chilimba. So I'll take myself on a nice dinner, Yeah.
Maureen's getting wine for everybody. Yes, Louise.
Yeah.
Why not? If my understanding is correct, I think we have exactly the same thing here. And in most countries, I think traditionally speaking, African countries have exactly the same sort of ethos of microeconomic sort of schemes. My only sort of consideration would be, you have to bear in mind a couple of things. The money that's going around essentially is just an advance, right? Because you are paying that money, and that money is yours. It's just that you get an advancement on it. So if, for instance, your contribution is £1,000 a month, and it's your turn to get, it's a group of 10, and it's your turn to get that money in the second month, you're going to get £10,000 up front, or £9,000, excluding your own contribution. But the only issue is you would have had that money anyway, right? In 10 months' time. So the consideration is, why do my thought process, we will always think about, you need to think about why you need that money and the reason why you're going into that. So if you can already save that £1,000 every month for 10 months, which will ultimately give you that £10,000, you know, what's the benefit of going into a group to achieve that? We started the call with having an understanding of debt, right? How debt, if not used properly, can turn into bad debt. And I think, you know, if someone engages in something like that, there has to be trust, but you also have to know yourself. You need to be responsible with your own money yourself. If you're just getting in it because you want to get the quick money fast, maybe perhaps that's not the right reason to do it. Maybe perhaps you need to understand the ultimate goal and the reasoning behind that means of acquiring those funds. But also, you know, the security and the safety thing is something that everyone here has mentioned. I think, you know, you have to do your own due diligence, because there's not, you know, you can't trust everyone, especially when it comes to money. People who you think would be the most reputable people would let you down because money would start to shine in front of their eyes. So I think you have to be very careful and understand, ultimately, as long as it's in line with your goal, as long as it's in line with what you were trying to achieve, then I don't see anything wrong with that. You know, it just has to have to make sure that that's part of the plan that you have in place. And also it's slightly different to actually investing in that way, because my assumption, if I'm correct in understanding how it works, is that, you know, you're not earning any interest on it, or you're not earning any investment growth on the money. You're just simply getting an advance payment on that. So maybe perhaps there's different ways, different avenues to achieve that with less risk associated with that, but also maybe self-discipline and just kind of being patient. We started, like I said, we started the call, and I think everyone's going to notice there, all the conversations that we're having, they're very, very interlinked. You know, one goes hand in hand with the other. You know, we started the call talking about debt and understanding ourselves, and now we're talking about debt, but we're talking about how to use it wisely. And I think we have to be in the right position to be able to use these tools, because they can backfire very quickly. I don't know if any of you have been in a position where maybe it's your turn round to actually pay the money every month, and then you get stuck and you don't have the money to pay, and the whole group is looking at you that, hold on, you know, it's your turn to pay. You know, you haven't actually contributed when you need to, and that's because maybe it was rushed. So you know, like we're saying, just understanding exactly where we are, understanding our goals, and making that debt, using it as a leverage as opposed to it turning into bad debt. You're on mute.
Apologies. I was just saying thank you, everybody. This section has been actually very eye-opening. I'm just going to summarize, because I think somebody joined just now. We first talked about debt elimination, as Louis said. Then we talked about building monetary wealth. For me, I've been writing down points from all of you, and I keep writing, like, the theme that keeps appearing to me is mindset. Africans need to change their mindset, not just Africans, individuals. If you've grown up in a family of bad debts and poor financial health and poor mindset, you have to recognize at some point in your life that you have control. You are an adult. You are an individual, and start setting those boundaries, as Celestine said, with yourself, with your mind. Treat yourself with the respect and the love that you deserve. Talk to yourself kindly. Change your mindset and change your behaviors. You cannot change behaviors without changing what's in here. And once we do that, all the other things will just follow through. So when you talked about eliminating debt, it all goes to, who am I? What do I want to achieve? And Chilumba talked about that. Where am I going? You know, then when it comes to building monetary wealth, what key elements should I look at now that I've, you know, cleared my debt? Where do I want to go? Maureen spoke about, you know, speaking to actual professionals. You do not need to pay for a lot of financial advisors. There's many financial advisors out there who will give you free information. There's even YouTube. Okay, obviously you have to be very careful with YouTube as well, because traders, but you know, you know, then we talked about village banking. In Africa, it seems to be a very popular thing. And as Chilumba brought up, and village banking and chilimbas, those things work. People may look down on them now, but they've put people through school. They've bought, you know, generational houses and stuff like that. That's another thing. Even though we're changing our mindsets, we also have to be very careful with the European way of thinking, where we think the African way of doing things is low because it's Africa, and the white way of doing things is the best way. That's not true. A lot of the financial systems created today are actually based on African ways of thinking, which comes from back in the past. And once you start honoring your past, and Chulu speaks a lot about that in her, she's got a blog called Africana Woman Blog, where she talks about knowing your roots. You know your roots, you know yourself, and you know your future. And it's true. We start understanding where we come from, the bad patterns that our families had. You start looking at yourself. What behaviors do I have? How can I change them? Honor yourself, forgive yourself. You start moving differently. That's what I believe. So thank you, everybody. Chulu, I'll stop talking. You can go ahead and finish.
Fantastic. This has been such a wonderful, and can you believe it's already 2 hours? And we have to conclude at the top of the hour. I think some people are saying, like, giving a sigh of relief. But what I would like to ask the panelists to do is to give concluding remarks, and please tell us if and why we should aspire to generational wealth. That is your concluding remarks.
I think I'll go first. We need to normalize thinking that we need to change. Let me put it this way. Every story doesn't have to be a rags to riches story. We need to change that mindset, because I think we've had enough. You know, I had nothing, I was sleeping on the floor. We've been there, we've all been there. But at some point it needs to stop. It doesn't mean that if you have secured your children's future, if I've saved for my children today, and I managed to take them to good schools, they don't have to suffer in order for their story to be relevant. I think we need to change that mindset. We need to think that things have changed. Yes, our parents were working, they're doing ABC, but times have changed. Our parents didn't save because they didn't have the information. Our grandparents didn't have the information. There is no excuse today for you not to save, because there's information everywhere. There's platforms like this today. There is, YouTube. Yes, we need to be careful, but there's information everywhere. Celestina said Google is amazing. You can just Google, put a keyword, and everything comes up. So there is no excuse. And people, of course, the type of work that I do, mainly we deal with the elite because of the amounts that are involved in people to save and to invest. But that doesn't mean that I can't spend time today and talk to people that can't invest $100,000. There's a lot of investment companies. There's, even with the options that we have, people will say, I don't want to invest offshore because I'm a patriot. I want to just invest in Zambia. That is not being a patriot. Invest in Zambia, but invest offshore as well if you have the ability to. There's nothing wrong. At the end of the day, it's your money. It's the mindset. So we need to change that mindset. We need to make sure that we are leaving a legacy. If you die today, you decide what phone call your family should get. Should it be from the bank to say that they got an unsecured loan, so we are repossessing your house? Or should it be from an insurance company to say that your mother died, so there's $1 million here, or even 500,000 kwacha? It will go a long way. So you decide what phone call your family receives. We need to change that mindset, and it ends now. That is in the past. Let's create wealth for our children. And there is nothing wrong with children growing up, happy, being driven in a Mercedes Benz. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with me saving to take my children to Harvard if I can afford it. It doesn't mean that there will be less in society. Let me end there.
Preach.
You're on mute.
I'm like screaming by myself, but I don't want to. I want you guys to go on with the conversation. I was just like, Maureen just killed it right there. Which phone call do you want your family to receive? Okay, mic drop. Let's go.
I agree. I fully agree. Preach. Go on.
Absolutely. Look, I'm going to second that. And I guess this is where us having this meeting and this discussion becomes really, really important. because what you're seeing is our minds being put together, and thankfully we all think the same way. I think this is for the benefit not just only of us individually, individually, but it's more so for our community as well. One of the things that, with everything that's going on within the world, everyone's been noticing the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that's happening in all different countries here and there and what so have you. But our community has been targeted and almost been one of the main communities that has been oppressed for reasons. One of the main reasons is because we don't have economic power, right? Economic power gives us a standing within the world, which will allow us then to compete within our own right? And one of the ways we can do that is by making sure our own family, we start with taking care of our own family. And the Bible says, one of the things that we should always focus on is understanding, the family unit, right? So the moment that we establish that actually the way that we develop and increase the economic power is by establishing that family unit and the power within our household, that then develops in other different ways within the country, within our community, and so on and so forth. And that's key. I deal with families that, have those phone calls. I work in the industry where we deal with insurance and so on and so forth. And in the UK here, a lot of families, are starting to, within our community, are starting to understand that and starting to see the value of insurance policies. Back in the day, and it's probably, I don't know what it's like in Africa right now, but there was a taboo around having insurance policy, because it's almost like saying, so what, you wishing me to die so you can take money, right? So whenever someone spoke about an insurance policy, it was almost like, no, stay away from me, because right now you're putting money on my head, right? But they don't understand that life and death happens. One thing that we're guaranteed is we're going to live and we're going to die. You can try to run away from it. You can put yourself in a room all day, lock yourself, not talk to anyone, decide that, it's too scary. COVID is too scary outside. I'm going to put on a suit from head to bottom. I'm going to have a mask. I'm not going to let no one touch me. Don't talk to me. But we're still going to die. And what's a much better way to take the opportunity to then leave a heritage or legacy for a family, which can continue exactly what we're trying to build. And I think, insurance is one of the things that, needs to be concentrated on and invested on a hell of a lot. I'll lead by saying this, I'll finalize by saying this. During the war in the UK, when Winston Churchill was sending the soldiers to fight in in one of the world wars, he said to the wives that were remaining, because he understood, one of the drives for the UK at that time was the men that were working. It was a completely different revolution at the time, industrial revolution, right? He knew that he needed men to work, to undertake this work, but he also knew that he needed soldiers, right? So one of the things that he said to the wives, he said, if you're smart, one thing that you would do is make sure that you invest in insurance to guarantee your family's maintenance, because he knew that there were going to be loads of lives that were left, but economically, he couldn't allow that to affect the people that were remaining, right? At that time, obviously, the women didn't have the same rights to work and so on and so forth. So the main breadwinners were the men. And that's something that they've adopted. And I think that kind of gave them a heads up, because the household income, or the average household income here within the UK, is completely disproportionate to African families and our communities and so on and so forth, just because of that investment. Families are starting out with an inheritance, like Maureen was saying, of £1 million. You've entered the world and you have £1 million already as an advancement. That gives you such a head start. So many things for you to achieve, compared to if you enter the world and you have a debt. That's the difference. That's the key. And I think our mindset and the conversations that we're having right now, I think just elevates that so much more. That's why I'm thankful, first of all, to connect with every single one of you. And I hope this can continue more and more, because there's so much value in this, not just for ourselves who are learning from each other, connecting and so on and so forth. When I travel to Zambia, I'm hoping to I've got a network that I can actually speak to, people I can get in touch with to understand the economy there, and vice versa. When you guys come over here, I'm hoping that we can get in touch. I'm more than happy to share my connections and networks, because that's what grows our community much more. That's how we develop this economic strength a lot more for the African community, and obviously the diaspora as well.
Thank you so much, Louise. Yes, we can't wait for you to come to Zambia. We're waiting. Chilumba, you have closing remarks? Or, yeah, or Celestina.
The first thing I want to say is building generational starts by taking accountable steps. We've talked about so many things that we could do. You don't need to start with all of them. You need to be decisive about one and run with it. The biggest competition we all have is not our network and our neighbors, it's ourselves. So we better deal with that and deal with it decisively and say, building a future that is better for me, my family, the generations that are coming, starts with me, and it starts with me taking the step. My closing statement is this, and I opened with it. Do not build your life, your business, your hustle, your anything on elements and circumstances you have no control over. Thank you.
Thank you, Chilumba. Celestina.
Yeah, so I wanted to go ahead and put the definition of generational wealth out there, right? Because I don't think we officially defined it. It is wealth passed on from one generation to another in the form or through the accumulation of assets. So assets can be land, property, real estate, stocks, bonds, liquid cash, and anything of monetary value, right? You a business, right? Businesses, you pass that on from one generation to the next. And that is the wealth, let's say I create for my kids and I pass it down. And they have kids and they pass it down. The myth about that is it doesn't last forever. It doesn't. So if I pass it down and my kids don't take ownership and grow the business or capitalize on the land or the real estate or the stocks or the life insurance, it ends, right? Another myth is you don't have to start you don't have to start at a certain age. It doesn't say, oh, at the age of 20, that's the best time to start. You can start when you're 60. You can start when you're 9 if you start working and you have a business, right? It just, you start anytime. Also, you don't have to come from money to make money. You don't have to come from wealth to have generational wealth, right? So all these rich people we're seeing, some of them come from generational wealth, others don't, but you can't equate those two together. So that's generational wealth. And to build that for me, I put in 4 simple steps. The first one is preparing the vessel. You are the vessel. Your mindset. We've said, I mean, this word is our golden word. Prepare the vessel. You are the vessel. Your mindset. Take a look at your finances. Take a look at your financial health. Get a financial coach. And let me explain. A financial coach and a financial advisor are 2 separate people. I'm a financial coach. I don't have certificates to advise you on how your money is behaving. And a financial advisor tells you how your money is behaving and how it should behave. So they're doing the numbers, move this here, invest in, this interest rate, all of that. That's what an advisor does, right? A coach tells you or helps you with your behavior with money. Those 2 are very different, right? So as a coach, they help you get your mindset straight. They help you with your budget. They help you with your savings. They help you with even life coaches and breaking generational cycles. Because sometimes if I'm not stopping the bleeding or the wound, I just can't move forward, right? So a coach it's like sometimes becomes your best friend, but then you cross lines, So that's a financial coach, and then there's a financial advisor, right? But seek those 2 out. You have to seek. If you need a financial coach to start, and then you accumulate more wealth, and you're like, okay, now I need a financial advisor to tell me what I have, my assets, and to help me move money around and invest in the right things. You have to go from A to B, right? You can't jump, because chances are you go to a financial advisor, they're going to bring you back to, you're not quite where we need to work with you just yet, all right? So that's step 1, prepare the vessel. Step 2 is create your flight plan. Louis has said it, Chilimba has said it, Marina said it. Where are you going? Where are you going? What's your end goal? You want to get married in the next 5 years. Do you have a savings account for your marriage? You know, I know men out here who are saving for their wife's wedding ring. Women, you can save for your wedding dress. Hello, have a savings account for your wedding dress, for your hair, your makeup. You know, you're helping your spouse out before you even get to your marriage, right? So what is your flight plan? What goals do you have? You want to build a house. What is your flight plan? What goes, you know, goal setting, and put dates next to it. Don't say, in the next 5 years, sometimes I'll build a 1-bedroom house. No, December 29th, 2030, I should have done this, right? And you hold yourself accountable. And as you're creating your flight plan, you're eliminating debt, because if not, you're not going far. The third one is mind your business. Mind your business is very simple. And I'm looking at my notes here. Live below your means. Even if you're earning $10,000 every 2 months, you don't have to spend $8,000 every 2 months. Live below your means. Your rent is too high, move into a smaller place. Find a roommate, you know, if you need to. If you're married and you don't need 10 bedrooms, move into what you need. Live below your means, and then you can have more disposable income, right? And acquire more assets as you're doing that. Land, like I said, you know, looking in your village and seeing what do we have, how can we protect it, how can we grow it? Starting a business if you need to. Selling things in your heart that you don't need. Stop spending so much money if you don't need it, right? The fourth one is repeat 1 to 3. That's it. Just repeat 1 to 3, and you'll see it will grow. It takes a lot of time, but it will really grow. And you have the right people around you, the trusted people around you. Get a financial coach if you need to. Reach out to me, reach out to Maureen, whoever you need. And we're here really to help you get your finances together. Reach out to Lewis. You know, everyone is here to change that African mindset, because we cannot keep going down this road. It just doesn't work out.
Thank you so much, Celestina. Oh,